Hey everybody, Mrs. Bianchi. We're looking at questions 2A and 2B. Kara baked 30 oatmeal cookies and 48 chocolate chip cookies to package in plastic containers for her teacher friends at school. She wants to divide the cookies into identical containers so that each container has the same number of each kind of cookie. If she wants each container to have the greatest number of cookies possible, how many plastic containers does she need? All right, now if we look at part B, they want to know, in this case, they want to know how many containers of each kind of cookie will there be. So when you come across a question like this and you see the idea of greatest number of, in class we've talked about how you know that you're going to need the GCF. But when you also see same number of, that also is more evidence that you're going to be dealing with GCF. But oftentimes when you see that also, and you have more than one question, which is the case here, right? Because they're asking, in this question, they're asking how many plastic containers does she need? And in part B, they want to know this part, how many containers of each kind of cookie will there be? So when you have two parts to the question, that's when you know we're probably going to be dealing with distributive property, and we do need to find the GCF. All right, so if we set it up, our scaffolding that is, we set that up. We usually set that up as the GCF, right, would be the first number, and we would be multiplying that by two things. And this one of them is going to be talking about oatmeal, and the other one is going to be talking about chocolate chip, but this will be the GCF. Now, I also think it's important to figure out what's the label on the GCF. So if it's going to be one of these numbers, like let's say it's 5, 5 what? And in class, we talked about how I want you to think of it as something per something. Because the labels that we see here are the words that are in the problem. I see the word cookies quite a bit in the problem, and I see the word containers in the problem. So let's look back and find where it says greatest number of and see what they're talking about. So it says greatest number of cookies. But cookies what? Per what? Wouldn't it be cookies per container? Cookies per container. So I'm going to use both those words, and we'll use a slash to show that that means cookies per container. All right, so we need to find the GCF of 30 and 48. Now, whenever you're finding the GCF and you're doing your factor trees for that, then what I would like you to try to do is put your suspected GCF in the lineup. So let's say you think that the GCF is 6, and then you put what the other factors are for each number. So 6 times 5 would be 30, and over here this would be 6 times 8. Now, for those of you who understand this, which won't be everybody, but if you look at the green numbers and you say to yourself, would they share any common factors? And if you can confidently say they would not, then you know you've selected the right GCF. But if that doesn't make sense to you, then you have to keep going with your branching and bring your prime numbers down. So by the way, I should probably tidy up on that 3. And this will be the same thing over here. We have 2 times 3. And then we would split up the composite number into 2 times 4, and we'd keep going because this would be a 2 times 2, and then we bring everything else down. So we have a 2, we have a 3, we have another 2, and then we have these numbers, and we want to separate that out with the multiplication sign. All right, so there's our prime factorization for 48 on that last row, and we have our prime factorization for 30. Now, as it turns out, in class we've talked about how you might do a Venn diagram to figure out the GCF. So let's take a look at how we might do that. So we can get that to clone. There it goes. All right, so let me move this line out of the way. All right, so the circle on the left will be all the prime factors of 30, and the one on the right will be all the prime factors of 48. And where the two circles interlock will be the ones they have in common. So we have matching 2s. We'll write it down. And we have matching 3s, but many of us were able to predict that ahead of time. And nothing else is a match in both. See, we have 5, but we don't have a 5 here. So if we are interested in the LCM, by the way, we'd put this number over here, we'd put these 3 numbers over here, and we'd multiply all the numbers, but we're just interested in the GCF. So the GCF is, in fact, 6. The product of 2 times 3 is 6. So that's the GCF. So that's how many cookies per container. Now, is that what they want for part A? Let's read it again. If she wants each container to have the greatest number of cookies possible, how many plastic containers does she need? So this is 6 cookies per container. So we have to decide where we're going to be using that number. Let's finish this up, and I think it'll make more sense because we have a lot of numbers here, a lot going on. So let's finish this up because now we have to figure out 60 times what would give us 30, and we already know that to be 5 because we tried that in our factor tree. 6 times what would be 48, and we know that number to be 8 because we also have that in our factor tree. But 5 what? 8 what? So is that containers that have oatmeal cookies? Right? Oatmeal cookies would be the 5, and the chocolate chip would be the 8. So that's 5 containers. 5 containers, let me clone this, of oatmeal. And this would be 8 containers of the chocolate chip. In your work, it's very important that you label your stuff so that it can help you answer the question. All right, so now we're going to look at what we have here in purple and look at questions 2A and 2B and figure out which choices match up. So let's kind of recap what they're asking in 2B. In question 2B, it says, how many containers of each kind of cookie will there be? So we have 5 containers of oatmeal cookies, and we have 8 containers of chocolate chip cookies. Is that a choice? It is, and you should pick it. Now, just to make sure we're clear on how to answer 2A, because for 2B, you're looking at this information to figure out 2B. But let's review what it is that we're doing for choice 2A. So that would be 6, right? 6, the greatest number of cookies possible. It's 6 cookies per container. So actually, this should be relabeled because it's not even right. All right, so good luck finishing this up.